Well, welcome Ashley and Christine and everybody else. And we'll put the sponsors in before we go to print. So we'll have that on our screen so we can do that way. So, but thank you guys for coming to part 3 of hands-on helping. I know that we've talked more in depth, especially last time, about kind of specifics, and I'm excited to hear this too. For personal reasons and professional too. I've been taking notes for both. So thanks, Melanie, and thanks for being with us again. I know you're busy, so thank you.
And everybody's busy, and what an amazing blessing it is to be busy doing things you love doing. And this is something that I love doing, which is spending time with people who want to make their own lives better and the lives of people living with dementia better as well. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, is how to do that with the idea that dementia is complicated. So this particular series is really about thinking about caring. It's thinking about how do we use our hands to help? How do we use the different kinds of cues which are beyond hands-on helping, because not everybody needs that kind of help. And I added, along with part 3, I added something to kind of a subtitle to this one of putting it all together, because some of this first part is going to look familiar. We've talked about the visual and the verbal and the hands-on, showing people what to do, telling people what to do, and then actually helping people do it. So we've talked about that one in the first one. We talked a bit at the second one about kind of progression. And so we talked about a little bit about early, middle, late. A little bit more specific is Tifa Snow's model, adapted from Claudia Allen's model. And then I kind of did a living part to it, is looking at how things change as dementia changes. This idea that people start out, you and me, on a good day, we're sapphires, we're living our lives. And then it moves into that diamond state of people were doing pretty well in the present, but they can't get new stuff in to stick. The emeralds, who are kind of living in the past and having trouble sequencing and with a lot of executive function kinds of things. People in the amber state who still have strength, but are losing a lot of that skill as they're living in the moment. Rubies, who are definitely living with the strength of the movement and not moving when they're sleeping, and people who are in that pearl stage where most of their life is kind of lived inside. So putting that together with the way of helping, then we wind up with this idea that early in dementia, we're going to be using more visual and verbal cueing. And then kind of in the middle, we're going to be still using that visual cueing, still using that verbal cueing, and then adding in some of that hands-on helping. And then later in dementia, less visual, more hands-on, but still keeping some of that verbal intact as well. So putting the 6 pieces of the puzzle putting the 6 pieces or the pieces together, the new content for today is this idea of the 6 Ps. So I'm going to introduce them here and kind of introduce this idea of what to do. And then we're going to spend the rest of our time together kind of figuring out how to really make it work. So the 6 Ps: problem, person, possible cause, plan, practice, pass it on. So that sounds cute and it's kind of rhythmical, but what does it really mean? So I'm going to stop sharing for just a minute and let's talk about what that really means. So that first P of problem is really thinking about what is really happening, what's really going on, because people might struggle with bathing for a lot of different reasons. Somebody might struggle with bathing because they think they've already bathed, and somebody else might struggle with bathing because it's the idea of using the tool that becomes a problem. And someone else might struggle with craving because they've got this reflex that's kind of pulling them in together. So really not labeling, but really describing what's happening is that first piece. And a critical piece of that is we sometimes think of things as problems that really aren't problems. I'm using in my own life with my own things. Is this a problem or is this an inconvenience? And if something is an inconvenience, I'm going to put less energy into it than if it's really truly a significant problem. So with dementia, we sometimes get really distressed about things that really don't make much difference. So I saw, Lisa, you kind of were smiling a little bit at that one. Do you have an example of what something like that might be?
I don't have a specific example, Melanie, but I just know from personal experience with family that, you know, someone will call and be all concerned about this one particular whatever it is, and it's happened more than once. And I have to go, yeah, but that's, who is that a problem for?
Yeah.
Even, you know, is it really a problem for the person with dementia? No, you know, he's happy doing what he's doing and he's content. So just because you don't necessarily like that he's watching TV all the time and not getting out of his chair as much, he's really happy doing that. So is it a problem?
Yeah. So kind of thinking, that's a great example, Lisa, of is it really a problem or is it really an inconvenience? And whose problem is it? Is it our problem as the care partners, or is it really creating a problem for the person living with dementia? The example that I give really often is shoes. So if I've got a doctor's appointment and I walk out and I'm ready to go to the doctor's appointment and I've got on one white tennis shoe and one black tennis shoe. My mom has these, and I forget the brand of them, but it's a brand of shoes that she likes. And so she's got 3 pairs of black ones and 2 pairs of navy ones and a pair of white ones. So they're all exactly the same shoes. You know, she's got outdoor black ones and indoor black ones and then garden black ones. So there's all these different shoes. So she walks out and she's got on one black shoe and one navy shoe, and we're off to the doctor. Is that a real problem, or is that just an inconvenience? Is that just something you prefer it not to be that way, or is that a real problem? And what do you think, Lisa? Is that a real problem or not?
I think because they're the exact same style of shoe, it's not a problem.
Yeah, it's not a problem, because I bet many of the people on this call have walked out with one black clog on and one navy clog on, or one black sock and one navy sock. You know, those kinds of things happen. But when people get dementia, sometimes we overreact and respond and see them as symbolic and big, and people are going to think I don't care. And whose problem is it? Is it our problem, or is it now? If my person were to walk out wearing one of those tennis shoes and a pump, you're nodding your head. Is that a bit of a problem?
It would be a problem. Yeah. Then we've got uneven steps and different texture. Yeah, that would be a problem.
So that would be a problem in that situation. So we think about the problem. The second P is we want to really pay attention to that person and what is normal for this person and what is unusual for this person and what is their usual routine and what are their preferences? What do they really like and what do they not like? And what has their history been about this particular activity? So we think about that person in context. How long have they had dementia? How fast have they changed? Have there been some other changes going on with them medically, or some other changes going on with their brain or their body? Because interestingly enough, our heads are attached to the rest of us. So if something's wrong with the rest of us, it's going to impact that head thing as well. So we start to kind of put the person together. Then we come up with a possible cause. What might be creating this issue? What could be going on with this person, this problem, creating this challenge? Then we come up with a plan and we give it a try. So we practice it. And then we pass on and we communicate the things that work and the things that don't work. And so when we put those three tools together, when we put together the tool of the visual, verbal, and tactile cueing, the tool of knowing where in the process of dementia that person is, and then that third tool of those 6 Ps, then we can really start to kind of make these connections and figure it out and come up with some solutions that are going to specifically and individually work for this person. The problem is, how many of y'all like to take shortcuts? You can do, a thumbs up as a reaction like that if you want to, or you can, if you're unmuted or if you can unmute, you can say, yeah, I'm really busy. I like to take shortcuts when I can.
Yes, I love taking shortcuts.
Ashley's a shortcut person. What about Christine or Janice? Are y'all shortcut kind of people, or you want to do it the long way?
Shortcut.
So Christine is going for the shortcuts too, and Janice?
It depends on what it is. Like in cooking, I do a lot of cooking from scratch. So that's just me. So it depends on what it is. I'll take the shortcuts where needed, but for the most part, I will do the long way if it, sometimes it's therapeutic.
If you're going to get a better outcome. I just learned just this year that it makes a difference when you follow the recipes in baking. Now, I've always followed the recipes as far as the ingredients, but I never followed that recipe of put the wet stuff together and the dry stuff together and then add it together in a certain way. That makes a difference. I made the best cake of my life because I followed the directions for the first time ever. Probably not ever, but in a really, really long time. So that was a shortcut that really wasn't working for me. Is that true with what you found as well, Janice?
Yes, and shortcuts are convenient, but I'm just a little anal sometimes. So yeah, taking a long route or following the directions and taking the time to do something, to me is engaging. I'm not just mechanically doing something. I'm also engaging mentally in what I'm doing. And sometimes I need to do that with my mother. Sometimes I'm just going through the motions. And really what she needs is someone to engage with her. So I don't always take the shortcuts because sometimes there's something vital that you're missing out on where she might be missing out on.
Yeah, so that's a really great point, that sometimes the shortcuts are worth it. And sometimes you pay for the shortcuts. And there's not an always or a never when it comes to this question. Ashley, you unmuted. What were you going to add?
Oh, I was going to say, Janice had a really good point, because I like to bake and cook. And there's certain times I'm like, no, we don't substitute. Like, Mom, why did you substitute on this recipe? Well, I didn't have this, but I had that. So it's you've got to look at the big picture on what your end point is and what you're the goal, and try to figure out, is a shortcut necessary or not?
Yeah, so that's a really good point, that sometimes you can make educated decisions about, or pertinent, meaningful decisions. So for example, going back to my wonderful coconut cake, which I will share the recipe because it came from a book. If I go back to my I didn't take any shortcuts when it came to the ingredients or mixing them, but I was running out of time. And so instead of making layer cakes, I made it as a sheet cake, because making it as a sheet cake was going to save me a lot of time when it comes to icing and cooling and all kinds of stuff. So it was a shortcut that was worth taking, but I had to kind of know what were the shortcuts that were going to work and where were the shortcuts not going to work. And Janice, you unmuted. What did you want to add?
I was going to say that, the point you made earlier, it all really depends on the outcome that you're trying to achieve.
Mhm.
So with that in mind, looking at the big picture, that's going to determine whether you take in the shortcut or you're going to do it the long way.
Yeah. So what are you really trying to accomplish? So I'm going to actually go back to sharing the screen because I agree with what we've talked about so far. And this idea of putting the pieces together, that when we put together these cueing resources of visual, verbal, tactile, thinking about where the person is as far as their dementia. So the GEMS model uses the idea of a GEMS state as kind of a fluid, changeable kind of thing. And what do we know as far as using the 6Ps? Because some of the shortcuts that people take that don't go so well when it comes to these kinds of caregiving things is maybe I'll try to shortcut something by hurrying up. And you can just show me thumbs up if you think hurrying up is a shortcut that's going. I can't do it when I've got this. Oh, maybe I can. You can show me either thumbs up, or you can show me what's a might be a crying O thing. What is the no? What's a good no emoji that's on the taskbar that I can't see when I'm sharing, Lisa? Okay, Lisa's got an X. That's a good one. Or you can just kind of show me your picture and show me thumbs up. Yeah, I think hurrying up is a good idea, or no, hurrying up is not a good idea. Or you can just unmute and say it. Do you think hurrying up is a good idea or not? Oh, I see a bunch of X's. Hurrying up is not a shortcut that works. Oh, there's another X. Another shortcut that doesn't work most of the time is the shortcut of it worked for somebody else, so it'll work for my person. So-and-so took this medicine and it worked, so I'll get my mom on that medicine. Or so-and-so did this thing with their husband, so I'll do the same thing with my husband. Do you think that works, or do you think that doesn't work? I'm going to go ahead and guess that most of y'all are going to put your X's back up there.
It doesn't necessarily work, but you won't know until you try.
Okay, so it doesn't necessarily work, but you won't know until you try. And so that might, because truthfully, a lot of the things I use in my consultations are things I've learned from family members, things I've learned through support groups, things I've learned through working with direct care workers. So yes, learning from people and adapting and trying those things. And if Lisa is Ashley's mom, and when Lisa's issue is she's a very private person. And so Lisa's issue, so we'll go through her problem. Lisa's problem is she doesn't, she gets really upset when I go to take her clothes off to help her, or when Ashley takes her clothes off to help her get in the shower, Lisa gets really, really upset. So that's the problem with Lisa. So what we decide to do is we know that, the problem is getting her undressed. She doesn't want to be naked. She is a very private person. So we've got to figure out a way for her not to feel vulnerable and exposed. And so what we decide to do is give Lisa a shower in her bra and underwear. And it works great, because as long as Lisa's got her parts covered, she's fine, but she just doesn't want to be naked. So that works great. So Christine comes up and she is helping with Janice. Oh, that doesn't work. Christine comes up and she's talking about her dad. And so Ashley says, well, what you ought to do for your dad is put him in a bra and underwear and give him, is that likely to work?
Probably not.
No.
No, that's not going to work. Yeah, so that's not going to work. And so we can take what we learned in Ashley's situation and maybe think, is it the same situation with Christine's dad, that it's a modesty issue, or is it something else with Christine's dad? that we've got to figure out. So that's where kind of taking that information, tweaking it. Here's an example. One of the classic kind of, the person living with dementia is leaving the house without somebody being with them. And one of the classic things we do with that is put a deadbolt at the top of the door. Now, why do you think putting a deadbolt at the top of the door works great for somebody living with dementia so they don't leave their house? Why do you think that would work? Janice, do you have an idea of why that might work? I think I caught Janice off guard.
I'm sorry, I had a call coming through at the same time you were asking the question.
You know, it happens every time, and I'm so sorry I put you in that situation. So do you want to answer, or do you may repeat the question or something else? Or you may pick on somebody else for a minute.
I don't know.
Okay.
I did hear the question, but I'm not sure. My mother hasn't advanced to that stage yet, so we haven't.
Okay, so let's see if we can figure it out. So Janice, if you go to open a door and it feels like it's locked, where do you look for a lock?
Down about midpoint.
Yeah, right at the doorknob, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Janice is going to look at the doorknob, trying to figure out why this door won't open. And if you can't figure out why that door won't open, what are you likely to do, Janice? Just kind of go on about your business, right?
Okay.
So that works for a lot of people. You know, they'll go try to find another door, or they'll try something else. Well, this one particular woman who came in tried it. Her dad was an engineer. So guess what Dad, the engineer, was able to do?
Take apart the door.
Take apart the door. He was able to just looking up. Oh, there's a deadbolt up there. Unlock it and go on about his business. So it worked for some people. It didn't work for the engineer. So we've got to kind of think about what have we planned and how do we make it better. So I'm going to go back to sharing. And this is pretty much the content, but I have a little video that I want to show you. And this little video is available to you. It's Lisa, while I'm pulling this up, do you want to tell where they can find this?
Sure. If you go to YouTube and you search Dementia Alliance of North Carolina, there's a section called Mondays with Melanie. And you can click on the playlist and you'll have all the links there for that. And that's where that is. There's also an education playlist as well, but I'll also send you guys the link for this so that you have it in your email.
Thank you. So this is gonna kind of look at a situation. Now, this is a simulation of a real consult that I did, that there was a lady who, it was early in COVID, and her family was really worried about her hand washing because she didn't do it. She didn't see any reason to do it. I'm here with my germs and they're only my germs. And so why do I need to? But what she wasn't paying attention to was there were people coming and going, and she was kind of coming and going. And all of us probably universally needed to get more attentive to hand washing early in COVID, and hopefully we've stayed with it by now. So they asked me to see what we could figure out to help her with her hand washing. So I made a little simulation of some of the things that we tried. Now, I'm going to be the lady living with dementia, and my care partner is actually my son. So let's see what happens. And Lisa, I'm going to ask you when I start playing if you'll give me thumbs up if you can see and hear. Okay.
Hey Melanie, can you help me with something?
You need some help?
I do need some help.
If I can, I'll try.
I think you can. Can you help me with fixing lunch, please?
I fixed lunch for many's.
Yeah, sure. Well, can you help me with that?
Sure, I'd be glad to.
Awesome.
Okay, so what have you noticed so far? What have you noticed about my care partner? How did he start this interaction? What did he ask for to start the interaction?
for you to help.
He asked for me to help. So why do you think that worked, Christine?
I think it got you more engaged and wanting to do something for him.
Yeah, so it got me engaged. It got me to want to do something for him. How interested do you think I am in having somebody tell me what to do in my kitchen? Do you think I'm very interested in that, or probably not?
Definitely not.
So Christine is going, definitely not interested in that. So Janice, I think you unmuted. Was there something you wanted to add?
Yeah, my mother often says I treat her like she's my child. And I'm like, Mom, you're not a child, you know, but I guess to reinforce the notion that she's still an adult, you approach her like she's an adult. So
Yeah.
I think that's important, that you validate them, that they're still a viable person, even if they have, you know, other issues that are affected, that dementia creates, but you're still validating them.
Yeah, because that works for all of us, right? One of the best ways to get somebody to buy into what you want to do is to find a place where it makes sense for them, you know, a place where it's valuable to them, where they've got some interest and some buy-in. And so this, you know, my grown-up son, I still know he's my son. I don't want him telling me what to do or bossing me around in my kitchen. And so that idea of him asking me for help, that went really well for me. And so that is a really important strategy, especially early on. Would you help me? So let's see what happens next.
Can we wash our hands first?
Oh,
'Cause, you know,
well,
you
you
gotta
always do that.
Yeah, you always got to do that
Yeah,
first.
you
Can I
always-
get on your right side real quick?
Now, what do you think would have happened if he had said, Mom, you're supposed to wash your hands before you wash before you fix lunch? What do you think would have happened?
Would have been more upset with him for telling her what to do.
Yeah, I would have said, well, if you want to boss me around about it, you just go ahead and do it your own self. You know, I know what I'm supposed to do. So then he moves over to my right side. And the reason for that is I am right-handed, and people tend to feel better about just human beings, just anything that might be considered, and I'm not saying my son is a threat, but something that has potential to make me feel uncomfortable. Anybody giving me support or giving me advice or being supportive, being on my dominant side, is going to help me tolerate it a little bit better. So let's see what happens next. You always do that.
Yeah. Want to get some soap on your hand first?
Well, you wet them first.
Yeah, you gotta wet them first.
Okay, so that seems subtle. What he said is put some soap on your hands first. And I said, you've got to wet them first. So does that give you a little bit of an idea about when in time I'm remembering helping in the kitchen?
Yeah, it's like second nature.
It's second nature. And what kind of, so it'll become clear, but hang on to that. Thinking about where in time am I thinking about working in my kitchen?
You got some soap right there?
That's a,
Yeah,
it's a fancy one.
it's a fancy one. You want some help with that?
I don't need any help.
You don't need any help? There you go.
Yeah, I can do. Okay, so what's the problem? What do you think is going on right there?
I think maybe you were looking for a bar of soap.
Yeah, so when you're washing your hand, do any of y'all remember washing your hand with a bar of soap? I mean, it seems like it's been so long since anybody had bars of soap. When you wash your hands with a bar of soap, you wet your hands and then you wash your hands, or you put the soap on your hands and you put, and so that idea of wetting my hands first tells you I'm not thinking about liquid soap necessarily. I'm probably thinking about solid soap and how that works like that. Now, what did I have trouble with mechanically at this part of the interaction? What was giving me trouble mechanically?
Actually
Thing.
dispensing the soap.
Yeah.
Actually dispensing the soap. And why do you think that is, Ashley?
I would imagine because you're going back to your past history and memory, and so you never really had to do that. Therefore, in the moment, you probably a little confused of the type of soap that you're using, and it just could potentially cause some confusion.
So I'm kind of thinking about an older type of soap, and this one is the special Christmas Bath and Body Works type of soap. And what's different about that top even? Most just plain old liquid soap has what kind of a top?
Maybe a smaller. It's
Yeah.
just different. It could be different, or maybe it's prettier, or just
Yeah,
different.
it's kind of fancy and gold looking, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of a fancy gold looking soap top, and it just kind of throws me there in a minute. And Matthew almost messes it up, because what does he say?
He asked for help. You refuse, but he does it anyway.
Yeah, so he asked me if he could help me. And what did I say?
You didn't need help.
I don't need help. And then what he did was what?
He helped.
He helped, but he helped without making a big deal about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
He didn't tell me to, Mom, hold your hand still, hold your hand right there and hold it still, because I had that part, right? We'll back it up just a minute and kind of look at what he does.
You got some soap right there?
That's a,
Yeah,
it's a fancy one.
it's a fancy one. You want some milk with that?
I don't need any help.
You don't need any help? There you go.
Yeah, I can do it.
Yeah, you can.
So he doesn't then say, well, Mom, you can't do it. You obviously can't do it. It's weird. He just kind of fills in the part that's not working for me so much. Let's see what happens next.
You can do it.
All right, I'm done.
Oh, let's wash for a little bit longer.
Okay, so I said, I'm done. Did I wash the recommended 30 seconds?
No,
What?
no, I
No.
don't think so.
I did not wash the recommended 30 seconds. And Matthew's getting ready to make another mistake, because he says something like, oh, you need to wash longer, but he has a secret weapon in his arsenal.
Gotta make sure they're clean. Rock of my soul in the bosom of Abraham. Rock of my soul in the bosom of Abraham. Rock of my soul in the bosom of Abraham. Rock of my soul. You want to rinse them off now?
You think so?
I think so.
All right.
There you go.
Well, I don't. All right, pretty good hand washing so far, right?
Mhm. That was a genius move.
So what was a genius move? Tell me more, Ashley. Tell me more about being a genius.
The fact that he distracted you in singing, and you obviously enjoyed singing, and the fact that he also was washing his hands along next to you. So it was, he's washing his hands, which he started later. So it encourages you to keep washing your hands too. So you're doing it together, and then start singing. And that's wow. I never even thought about that.
So do you think I used to do this with him?
Probably.
Yeah, because when he was a little kid and he didn't love washing his hands or brushing his teeth or any of the many other things little kids don't necessarily like to do, we used music a lot of times. So this is a song he has heard all of his life. You know, this is a song, because I like this song a lot. This is the song he got rocked to sleep with many a nights. This is a song that he brushed his teeth to many a morning and evening. This is a song that is comforting to him. And is it important that it be something that's comforting to him?
Mhm.
Yeah, because what's going to happen to his ability to be supportive of me if he's not overwhelmed and stressed and miserable?
True.
Is it going to go better for him? If it goes better for him, is it going to go better for me?
Yes.
Yeah. So if he's happy and content and his brain is feeling well taken care of, then, oh, it's going to go so much better for him and for me.
I think also it creates a happy moment for the two of you, just a stress-free, happy mom and son together moment that was really sweet to watch, but also probably for you as that person, just made you feel good about it too.
So it makes me feel good. It reduces our stress. And does that song make me feel confident and in control?
Yes.
Yeah, because it's a song I use to help baby Matthew. So it keeps that kind of relationship intact, that I'm still helping him. Okay. But we're about ready to come into more trouble or potential barriers. Let's see what happens next.
See the towel.
We have some paper towels right over here. Let me get one for you.
Well, that's kind of a waste.
Oh, yeah, that's all we have right now. We don't have any towels.
Alrighty.
So that almost went to a bad place, because what was I looking for to dry my hands on, Lisa?
The dish towel.
I was looking for that dish towel. And why is it not a good idea for me to be using that dish towel?
Because we'd have to immediately put it in the wash.
Yeah, and it's just, yeah, we were being so careful with those kinds of things, being really hyper aware of those kinds of things. And so Matthew had to give me an excuse. We don't have any wash towels now, or any dish towels. Now I have probably 20 dish towels. So why did I not go down the rabbit hole of I've got 20 dish towels? Why did I not get triggered into arguing in that moment about, of course I've got dish towels, what did you do with my dish towels? Why do you think that didn't happen?
I think he immediately gave you an alternative. We don't have those, but we have this.
Okay, so he gave me something that was a substitute so I could live with it. And I'm going to ask Christine. Christine, are you there? Can you unmute for just a minute?
Yep.
So how am I feeling about Matthew in general?
I mean, I think overall you're feeling good.
Okay, so overall, I'm feeling good with him. Overall, I'm feeling in charge. Overall, I'm feeling safe. So do I need to make every point?
No.
Okay, so I can let go, let him win this little one, because I am feeling centered and in control and safe. If we had gotten into some conflict about the soap, some conflict about I don't need to wash my hands, the paper towels might have just been what?
That would have been kind of the tipping point. Yeah.
It could very easily have been the tipping point. So the point I want to make at this point is, a lot of times what we see as being the real issue, the real problem, the real challenge isn't what's happening right there at that moment. It's kind of the challenge of the day going down, or kind of the challenge of distress going up, that leads to, I've tolerated, bam, can't tolerate it anymore. And so because I hadn't been tolerating much, I was feeling good, I was feeling safe, I was feeling in control, feeling like we had a good thing going, I let him get away with it.
Nice and dry. Now, Melanie, we also have some lotion here because, when
Oh.
you wash your hands a lot and they can get a little dry,
Okay.
we wouldn't want that to happen. So, get you a little bit of lotion that you can rub into your
Well,
hands.
are you gonna get? Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna get some too. I don't like dry
Alright.
hands either.
Alrighty. Well,
Doesn't that feel good?
let's do it then.
Let's do it.
Alrighty.
All right.
So I'm going to pause there and I'm going to stop sharing. And I want you to think about what you just saw, that little, how long do you think that is, Lisa? Maybe a couple of minutes?
Yeah, probably.
2 or 3 minutes. I want you to think about what you saw in that 2 or 3 minutes that you're going to try with your person living with dementia or with anybody else in your life who might need a little bit of a different kind of support. So take a minute and just reflect. What are you going to try? Because there were lots of things that happened in there that we pointed out, and some things that maybe kind of slipped through that we didn't pay much attention to. But what are you going to try as you move on to spending time with your person living with dementia, or pretty much anybody you want to do something?
Yeah, well, I'll say, I mean, since there isn't anyone with dementia in my family, this parallels very well as you've resonated with kids, and I have a 4-year-old. So this is a perfect example of how I should be handling hand washing, and I'm not. Instead, I'm the one that probably escalates, and then he escalates, and boom. So there are many, many examples. I love the little singing at the end, and I know they even have that for kids nowadays, and I haven't done it, but even seeing it here with dementia, how it helps, and it's that connection. I need that connection too. So yeah, that really resonated with me.
So there were a couple things in there that Christine said, and one kind of emphasizes that brains are brains are brains. You know, so whether this brain is in a 4-year-old, or whether this brain is in a fatigued care partner, or whether this brain is the person who's living with dementia, or whether this brain is whoever this brain might be, these kinds of things make a difference, and they work because they're not based on people having plaques and tangles. They're based on us just treating human beings like they're human beings. I tell people sometimes, I raised my son like he's got dementia, and Lisa gets that. And other people get that because I treat people with dementia incredibly well. The pediatrician did not get that. The pediatrician thought I was saying my son was cognitively impaired, and he really didn't get that part very well. But the rest of us kind of get it. So it's about working with us when we're tired. It's about working with the person living with dementia. It's about working with family members who may not get it either. So thanks for sharing that, Christine. Janice, you're unmuted. What were you going to add?
Yeah, I was going to piggyback on the idea about singing. Basically, what you're doing is creating a mood. So since emotions are contagious, you want to foster the type of mood that you want that individual to be in. So if it's a happy mood, then you think of a happy song or a happy memory that the demented person might remember, and you're basically finding a way to connect with them emotionally.
Yeah, beautifully said, Janice, that music sets the mood, or something. You said it much more eloquently than I just paraphrased it, but that idea that music does create a mood, it creates an environment. And so if I want the person to get going, I want something upbeat, I want something positive. If it's a time of the day where I want the person to rest a bit,
Yeah.
I might want something. Yes, what?
I was going to just say another point. One of the other people said they had a 4-year-old, and I just thought back when my children were small, Saturday mornings was the time that my mother used to get me up to help clean the house, and no kid wants to get up to do chores on Saturday. So she used to play music, and when my kids were small, I used to take out the Lion King soundtrack and play that, and they just loved it. So we're walking through the house and dusting and singing Hakuna Matata or whatever the words are, and that kept them in that mood while they were actually doing the chores. So and you just brought that back to memory. Those are things that you can do with the person that you're caring for.
Yeah, because that music is fun and it means something to them. It's got context for your kids, and so it means something to them. It means kind of joy and fun, and it's energetic, and it's distracting, and it's got a strong rhythm to it, And so for all of those reasons, it goes perfectly with cleaning the house, especially if you play it other times as well, you know. So it doesn't just become a source, or maybe you save it for just cleaning house. So that's the fun time that we get to hear this wonderful music. But yeah, so that music, that makes sense. So maybe if what we are getting ready to do is to go get a shower, maybe we don't want maybe we want something that brings a sense of control and peace. I had one guy who was the only person who could help this one man get cleaned up. And I was watching him one day to see what he was doing, because he had no trouble and everybody else did. And so this was a guy in an assisted living facility. So he'd walk in and he'd sit down next to the bed. He said, "Man, what did you think about that game last night?" And the man would start talking about whatever game he remembered in his life. And he said, "Yeah, that was amazing." What? And he said, "Come on, let's get cleaned up for the day." So he wouldn't use the word shower. He would say, "Let's get cleaned up for the day." They'd walk down the hall and the care partner would start singing, "Raindrops keep falling on my head." And that doesn't mean that. So it's kind of, he would sing it kind of slow, and it's got kind of a perky rhythm, but it's not a happy, it's just kind of, it's kind of a soothing. And it was about water falling on your head, which kind of prepared him for the shower, and it worked. So that idea of using these kinds of tools and strategies in some creative kinds of ways. So I know two people spoke out. Ashley spoke out and Janice spoke out. Christine, was there something you're going to hold on to from this idea about this video?
Yeah, I talked about my 4-year-old.
Oh, your 4-year-old. So Ashley's the one. I missed it.
I can't get my video to turn on. Oh, well, sorry.
I'm sorry.
I don't know why. It's like
There
it's
you
stuck
go.
or something, but there it
You
is.
are?
Okay.
There you are.
Okay. Now what were you saying? Anything specific from this video that we watched?
Yeah, that you're gonna try in your
Okay.
life somehow.
So I think this would probably be good of how you use, maybe not specifically on hand washing situations, but just general situations, how to be creative and trying to come up a way, because I know my grandmother is having some issues, and I know that it's very challenging for my mother, and so come up with these creative ways to make my grandmother think my mom's not trying to tell her what to do, and just come up with some of those tools and strategies. I think they're wonderful because you can take them back to a different time, and so that's definitely very beneficial.
Yeah,
I appreciate
some of those ideas of taking your agenda and keeping it in your visual
Mhm.
field, but
Yeah.
not keeping it between you and that person living with dementia.
Mhm.
So just to kind of pull this together in a little bit of ways, we can sit here on this call and talk about the visual, verbal, tactile cueing. We can sit here on this call and talk about the 6 Ps and talk about the gem states, and realize that there are a lot of people out there who are in the moment, in the situation, who are struggling to find that level of understanding and to find that level of insight. So I want you to do this with me. Do this with me. So take your hand and kind of rotate it around like this. And even if I can't see you, you can do it. And now do this. And now do this. So this is stress. So when your stress is down here, now do this. This is your logic and your reason. So when you're pretty low stress, I know it's kind of hard, isn't it? I just learned how to do that. When you're stressed, your logic and your reason can go. When you're a little bit of stress, when you get up here, what do you think happens to your ability to use logic and reason? It lessens. It lessens. And so when you're way up here like this, go ahead and give me a thumbs down. Your ability to use logic and reason and your ability to be flexible is the direct opposite of your level of stress and anxiety. So I said earlier that I raised my son like he had dementia. And Lisa will tell you, he turned out pretty good.
It turned out great.
Yeah. So, and she says that behind my back too, I understand.
I
So,
do.
yeah. So, it's not just children I treat like they've got dementia. The reality is I treat the majority of people in my life. There have been moments when I've treated you like you had dementia, haven't there?
Yes, absolutely. And sometimes I notice and sometimes I don't,
Yeah.
but it always works.
Yeah. And
Sometimes
so,
I'll be sharing with Melanie and she'll say, well, tell me more about that. And I know it's just her way of letting me share and feel accepted. And I've heard you say that to people with dementia and other people too, and it works.
because there's nothing about relationships are not that different when you have the relationship with the person living with dementia, or when you have that relationship with that care partner. Human beings are ultimately human beings, and they're universal things that we all need. So, let's finish that way. Let's finish this series on that note. What are some universal things that all human beings need? And you can unmute and say it out loud, or that would actually probably be great. Unmute and say it out. What are some universal things that all human beings need? Thinking about people living with dementia, thinking about care partners, thinking about us, thinking about kids. What do we all need? Yes, Janice, I saw you unmute.
A sense of belonging.
A sense of belonging, a sense of belonging. So tell me more about what you mean by that, Janice.
Feeling like you can connect with other people and they connect with you. You feel like you have an identity as a part of a community, whether that be a family or in the environment where you live or work. So
that sense of having community, that sense of belonging and being there. And I saw Christine had to jump off because she's got a 1 p.m. call. But that sense of belonging to a community, of being part of something that's beyond yourself, and not just belonging, and not that belonging is a just, but belonging and Christine put in the chat, respect. So not just that the community supports you, but that you have value in that community, that you are respected in that community, that you have an honored place in that community. Is that kind of what you're talking about as well, Janice?
Yes.
Yeah. So Ashley, what would you add?
I think we need love.
So you need
like appreciation, love, kindness, sometimes giving people the benefit of the doubt. People have bad days, just be like the golden rule.
So treat others like you would have them. So yeah, so that both of those work for you, both the sense of community and belonging and a sense of respect. I'm going to add a couple of things to that. I'm going to add, people need a sense of control. They need to have a sense that I have some control over what is going to happen to me in my life. And if I take away your control, what are you likely to do? Are you going to push harder, or are you going to give in?
Push harder.
So Ashley's going to push harder. Janice, are you going to push harder, or are you going to give in?
I think you have a power struggle.
So you wind up with the power struggle. What about you, Lisa? Are you going to push harder or give in?
Push harder.
Okay, so we're all people who are going to push harder. That's really common in people living with dementia. The other possibility is when we take away that control, some people living with dementia give up. They give up and they just start to let go, and they lose that motivation and that connection and that drive. So some people are going to let go, some people are going to push harder. So I think all human beings, when it comes to how our days go, when it comes to what we do during our day and how we do it and how I manage my body, need a sense of control. Another one that I will add in there is a sense of purpose and meaning. So part of the trigger that worked for Matthew, that Matthew did with me, was asking for my help and then being able to say thank you to me after. So I think that is part of a relationship that sometimes gets a little left out. We have kind of this hierarchy that and that's why I use the term care partner and not the term caregiver, because most of us, when the dynamic is, if Lisa and I have a relationship and I'm always the one that's giving and giving and giving, is that a really healthy, good relationship, Lisa?
No, it's not.
It's not. So would that disturb you?
It would, yeah, we would need to be equal in that relationship.
Yeah. So we as human beings, not just adults, but children need this too. You know, that sense of being valuable, that sense of needing control, and that sense of being able to contribute. So the sense of not just getting, but giving. And so that's where that would you help me? I've gotten really, really behind. I need help getting the table set. I've got really, really behind. I had one lady who, the way we got her in the shower was by having her hold my puppy. Because my puppy needed to get a bath. And the puppy was really scared. And puppy didn't like a bath either. And so we put her in the shower, in a slip with the puppy in her lap, on a towel. And I gave the puppy a bath. And by that point she was wet. And so I said, you've got puppy hair all over you. Let's just go ahead, and while we're in here, let's just go ahead and get everything cleaned up. And it worked beautifully because she loved the puppy. She didn't care for me too much, but she loved the puppy.
That's great. That's such a creative approach to that.
Yeah. Now you would probably give a puppy a bath, wouldn't you, Lisa?
In a heartbeat.
Yeah, of course she would. She's a real puppy person. So I want to thank y'all for sticking with me through these 3 sections. I want to thank to Lisa and to Dementia Alliance of North Carolina for sponsoring this. And anything you want us to talk about or anything you want to say before we go?
I just want to thank you guys for joining us again. Our sponsors were Eastside, Aware Senior Care, and Kent Thompson with Capital Financial. So we want to thank all our sponsors this year. And I did want to let you know that we've got 2 trainings coming up in January. One is going to be caring for the caregiver. It's a free one. It's not only caring for ourselves as caregivers, but how to care for someone else that might be a caregiver. So if you're the caregiver of a caregiver, this would be for you as well. And then our second training is support group facilitator training. So if you know anyone who might be interested in leading a support group for other people going through this, then take a look at our website, dementianc.org. And just thank you guys so much for being with us throughout this. And we really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, happy holidays, everybody. Thanks.